This happy little elf game is so stupid. You tap and wait and tap and wait. And for what? So your pretend town can have more pretend flowers than your pretend friends? What a colossal waste of time. Hey, what if I buy a bushel barrel full of elf berries? That should speed things up. I spent $1,000? Oh well, I'll just tell them that my kid did that. Uh-oh.
The long collective enterprise of science has revealed a universe some 15 billion years old, the time since the explosive birth of the cosmos, the Big Bang. The cosmic calendar compresses the local history of the universe into a single year. If the universe began on January 1st, it was not until May that the Milky Way formed. Other planetary systems may have appeared in June, July, and August, but our sun and Earth not until mid-September. Life arose soon after. Everything humans have ever done occurred in that bright speck at the lower right of the cosmic calendar. The Big Bang is at upper left in the first second of January 1st. 15 billion years later is our present time, the last second of December 31st. Every month is 1.25 billion years long. Each day represents 40 million years. Each second stands for some 500 years of our history, the blinking of an eye in the drama of cosmic time. At this scale, the cosmic calendar is the size of a football field, but all of human history would occupy an area the size of my hand. We're just beginning to trace the long and tortuous path which began with the primeval fireball and led to the condensation of matter, gas, dust, stars, galaxies, and at least in our little nook of the universe, planets and life, intelligence, and inquisitive men and women. We've emerged so recently that the familiar events of our recorded history occupy only the last seconds of the last minute of December 31st. Some critical events for the human species, however, began much earlier, minutes earlier. So we change our scale from months to minutes. Down here, the first humans made their debut around 10:30 p.m. on December 31st. And with the passing of every cosmic minute, each minute 30,000 years long, we began the arduous journey towards understanding where we live and who we are. 11:46. Only 14 minutes ago, humans have tamed fire. 11:59:20, the evening of the last day of the cosmic year, the 11th hour, the 59th minute, the 20th second. The domestication of plants and animals begins. An application of the human talent for making tools. (11:59:35). Settled agricultural communities evolve into the first cities. We humans appear on the cosmic calendar so recently that our recorded history occupies only the last few seconds of the last minute of December 31st. In the vast ocean of time which this calendar represents, all our memories are confined to this small square. Every person we've ever heard of lived somewhere in there. All those kings and battles, migrations and inventions, wars and loves, everything in the history books happens here in the last 10 seconds of the cosmic calendar. We on Earth have just awakened to the great oceans of space and time from which we have emerged. We are the legacy of 15 billion years of cosmic evolution. We have a choice. We can enhance life and come to know the universe that made us, or we can squander our 15 billion year heritage in meaningless self-destruction. What happens in the first second of the next cosmic year depends on what we do here and now with our intelligence and our knowledge of the cosmos.
One nuclear fuel pellet has an amazing amount of energy stored in it. In fact, it's the equivalent of 149 gallons of oil or 1 ton of coal. If you were to take a stack of them, 1 cubic foot of nuclear fuel pellets would supply all of the electricity you and your children would need for your entire lives.
Nuclear reactor cores are made up of close to 20 million of these tiny pellets. So, how does this little pellet produce so much efficient, usable energy? That's where nuclear fission comes in. 2 or more neutrons are released from the nucleus of the uranium atom, and these neutrons are then freed to hit other uranium atoms, causing them to split. This process repeats itself in a controlled chain reaction. This chain reaction produces heat energy. At its essence, nuclear energy is a high-tech way to boil water and spin a turbine. Any technique for generating electricity requires fuel, and uranium is the primary fuel of the nuclear power plant.
The reactor, which is right over here, really is kind of the heart of the plant. That's where the energy is produced. We turn that energy into steam. The steam comes over to this section of the plant, and we make the electricity.
We have the 3 defense barriers to prevent fission product release to the environment: the cladding around the fuel, the primary coolant system that circulates the cooling water through the reactor core, and then the overall containment. So we don't have any boilers or anything of that nature that we got to put coal in or natural gas to burn or anything like that. All that goes on in the reactor producing heat by nuclear fission.
Inside this road you have uranium pellets. With these uranium pellets we will have the fission reaction on the production of electricity, and we put all the assemblies inside the reactors. On inner reactors you have 200 assemblies like that to produce electricity for everybody.
Behind me down in this pit is the Unit 2 reactor vessel. Ultimately, the reactor core sits down in here, produces all the heat that basically makes all the steam that makes all the power. This is our reactor head. Here's the underside of the head. And you can see up there the upper edge. If you look up underneath here, then you'll be able to see where the drive rods for the control rod drives themselves are actually aligned and then go up into some funnels and up into the rod drive mechanisms themselves. Seeing this head, actually being able to look down into the vessel, being inside this containment, only the workers that need to go to do the maintenance that we have to do for an operating cycle actually get this close.
A nuclear power plant is really nothing but a fancy way to create steam. In many ways, with the exception of the reactor itself, we're exactly the same as any other type of power plant. We're using some kind of force to turn a turbine. That turbine turns a generator which produces power.
The steam is going through the turbines right now, turning the turbine blades, which turn a shaft and turn this generator here. The generator's making about 850 180 megawatts of electricity. That's enough power for over 800,000 homes.
Once that steam leaves the turbine, it's brought into a condenser. You take steam and you condense it back to water, and so we can bring it back over and start this whole process again.
The water is kept under pressure and prevented from boiling, circulated through the reactor and through steam generators that actually heat the water that becomes steam to make power with.
To walk into here and all of a sudden say, hey, I know something about nuclear. I know how atoms split and how to make things work and what the reactor operators need to do to keep this plant running. It's a pretty profound thing.
Radioactive substances that emit gamma rays, like technetium, can be injected into the body to produce images. This machine has a gamma camera. It detects the gamma rays emitted by the technetium. 15-year-old Daniel was born with a hole in the heart. He's been coming to Guy's Hospital in London since he was 2. Today, he's here for a technetium injection. Radioactive technetium is pretty dangerous stuff, but a small measured amount of it can detect a life-threatening medical condition. For Daniel, radioactive imaging is the best way to make sure his heart is functioning correctly. But first, Daniel's technetium injection has to be made up in the hot lab. Safety clothes and radiation monitors have to be worn to protect the staff.
This is where the radioactive technetium is produced, and this is what we're going to use to make up Daniel's kit for this afternoon. I'm going to use a syringe and needle to draw up the radioactive technetium, but to protect myself from the gamma rays, I'm going to insert it inside a lead syringe shield, and at the front you can see there is lead glass so that I can see through into the syringe what I'm actually drawing up. The radioactive kit is now ready to be taken out and used to inject Daniel.
The technetium is taken to the preparation room, where the exact dose is carefully measured. The dose is small enough to create a good image of Daniel's heart, without putting him at too much risk from the dangerous effects of radiation.
I now have my dose. I'll take it to the camera in this protected lead box. Daniel.
We're just going to get you ready for the scan now, Daniel. If you turn your head round that way, we're going to move the camera down. It's going to be very close to your chest, alright? But it won't move once it's in the right position. Okay? In a minute, Penny's going to give you the injection, and you've got to keep still for about 5 minutes. Okay? The camera's going to be detecting the gamma rays so that we can take pictures of your heart.
As the technetium is injected into Daniel's arm, we can see it being taken up by the bloodstream, which will finally make its way to his heart. Radioactive imaging has many advantages over X-rays. A standard X-ray only produces a static image, but radioactive images enable scientists to see body functions such as blood flow and even bone growth. Here we can see gamma images of 2 kidneys. They have revealed that one kidney is actually larger than the other. There are other types of radioactive substances used in imaging, like radiofluorine. Again, a gamma camera is used to detect the gamma rays emitted by radiofluorine. Here we have an X-ray and a radioactive image of the same hand. On the left there's the standard X-ray, but it was the radioactive image that detected the non-cancerous growth. That's it today for Daniel. His heart has checked out fine, and was it an awful experience?
Didn't feel a thing.
Your doctor may recommend intensity-modulated radiation therapy, a procedure that treats certain forms of cancer to kill cancer cells or control their growth. The cells in the body grow and divide as part of the normal cell cycle. The cell's nucleus controls this process. Inside each nucleus, genetic material called DNA contains the instructions for directing this process. Sometimes the cell's DNA becomes damaged. Normally, the DNA responds by either repairing itself or instructing the cell to die. In cancer, however, the parts of the cell's DNA that direct cell division become damaged. When these sections are damaged, the DNA is unable to repair itself. Instead, the unrepaired DNA causes the cell to grow and divide uncontrollably into more damaged cells called cancer cells. A tumor forms as the cancer cells multiply and displace the normal cells. Radiation kills cancer cells by inflicting overwhelming damage to their DNA. The tumor shrinks as the cells stop dividing and die. If the tumor is in your head, your radiation therapist may make a mesh frame or mask that will keep you positioned correctly during the IMRT. Or you will get small permanent tattoos to help align the IMRT. Next, your therapist will do a CT scan of your head to get a detailed picture of your tumor and its borders. Your doctor will use the scans to specify the three-dimensional shape of your tumor and vital tissues nearby. The tumor's shape, size, type, and location help your doctor determine how the IMRT beam should be adjusted to hit your tumor and avoid healthy tissue. During your procedure, a medical linear accelerator will deliver an X-ray beam to your tumor. A computer inside the accelerator will adjust the beam with a device called a collimator. The collimator will adjust or modulate the intensity, direction, and shape of the radiation beam. This feature allows higher doses of radiation to be delivered to your tumor while sparing your healthy tissue around it. You may receive many radiation treatments over days or weeks. This allows your body to recover between treatments and to kill as many cancer cells as possible. Side effects are usually mild and occur only in the treatment area. Common side effects include localized skin irritation, localized hair loss, or inflammation and swelling near the tumor location.
It is only in the last 100 or so years that humankind has understood that the nucleus of the chemical elements is not always fixed. It can change spontaneously from one element to another. The name for this process is radioactivity. You probably already know something about the nucleus. It's much tinier than the atom. It's made of particles called protons and neutrons. There are electrons orbiting around it. And though the atoms can share or swap electrons when they bond together, the nuclei themselves never change. Right? Well, no. Certain nuclei are not stable in that way. This means they may change suddenly, spontaneously. The radioactive nucleus flings out a small particle and transforms into another element, just like that. For example, a carbon nucleus can eject a fast-moving electron and turn into a nitrogen nucleus. There are two different particles that can be emitted from radioactive nuclei, though never together. The very fast electron is known as a beta particle. If you know a little bit about electrons, you may be thinking, what was the electron doing in the nucleus in the first place? The answer is that a neutron in the nucleus spontaneously changed into a proton, which stayed behind, and an electron flew out as a beta particle. This is not what chemistry has taught us to expect. The nucleus is supposed to be stable. Neutrons don't change into protons, except sometimes they do. The other particle that emits spontaneously from an unstable nucleus is alpha. An alpha particle is 8,000 times more massive than beta, and it's a bit slower. Alpha is made from 2 protons and 2 neutrons. If we trap a lot of alpha particles together, we get helium gas. Alpha is a helium nucleus. Like the beta particle, we would not have expected a heavier nucleus to throw out helium. But again, it happens, and the nucleus becomes a new element. So, is radioactivity useful or just dangerous? Wherever you are sitting, it is quite likely that there is a device nearby which contains a source of alpha particles, a smoke detector. The source is radioactive americium. You are totally safe from these alpha particles, which cannot travel more than a few centimeters in air. Beta particles penetrate much further through materials than alpha can. Radioactive atoms are used in medicine as tracers, to show where chemicals travel in the patient. Beta particles are emitted and have enough energy to emerge from the body and be detected. There is a third type of nuclear radiation, gamma, which is not a particle at all. It is an electromagnetic wave, like microwaves or light, but it is actually 1,000 times more energetic than visible light. Gamma rays may pass right through your body. Gamma is used to zap the bacteria in fruit to increase its shelf life, or in radiotherapy to kill cancer cells. Radioactive substances get hot, and this heat can be used to generate power. This heat has been put to use in space probes and, in the past, in pacemakers for hearts. The more abruptly nuclear radiation is slowed down, the more damage it does to the atoms it hits. This is called ionization. Alpha causes the most ionization as it crashes into other atoms, and gamma the least. For humans, the most serious effect of radiation is the damage that it can cause to our DNA. Although alpha cannot penetrate your skin, if you inhale or ingest a radioactive nucleus, the health consequences can be severe. Radioactivity is both useful and deadly, but it is all around us as a background to the natural world.
Within 1,000th of a second of the detonation of this bomb, a fireball would form, reaching out for 2 miles in every direction, 4 miles across. Within this area, temperatures would rise to 20 million degrees Fahrenheit, which is hotter than the surface of the sun, and everything would be vaporized. The buildings, the people, the trees, the upper level of the earth itself. To a distance of 4 miles in every direction, the blast would generate winds in excess of 600 miles per hour and blast pressures greater than 25 pounds per square inch. Forces of this magnitude can destroy anything that human beings can build. Underground shelters would collapse. To a distance of 6 miles in every direction, the heat would be so intense that automobile sheet metal would melt. To a distance of 10 miles in every direction, the blast would still generate winds in excess of 200 miles per hour and blast pressures greater than 10 pounds per square inch. Forces of this magnitude would level wood frame buildings, masonry buildings. A modern steel and concrete building would see its walls and floors swept out. Just the steel skeleton would remain. To a distance of 16 miles in every direction, the heat would be so intense that everything flammable would burn. Wood, paper, cloth, heating oil, gasoline, it would all ignite. Hundreds of thousands of fires, which would, over the next half hour, coalesce into a giant firestorm, 32 miles across, covering over 800 square miles. Within this entire area, the temperature would rise to 1400 degrees Fahrenheit. All the oxygen would be consumed, and every living thing would die. Beyond this great firestorm, the destruction would continue, and there would be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people suffering severe injuries, crush injuries, penetrating injuries, extensive burns, blindness from retinal burning. All of these people would need intensive medical care, but it would not be available because most of the hospitals would be destroyed, most of the doctors and nurses and other health professionals would be dead, there'd be no electricity to run the ventilators and cardiac monitors, most of the medical supplies would be exhausted within hours, and the vast majority of these people would not receive any medical care at all. They would die alone and in great pain. And if this attack were part of a large-scale war between the United States and Russia, this level of destruction would be visited on every metropolitan area in the United States and in Russia. A study which Physicians for Social Responsibility published in 2003 showed that if just 300 of the warheads in the Russian arsenal detonated over urban targets in the United States, something between 75 and 100 million people would die in the first half hour. In addition, the entire economic infrastructure would be destroyed. The transportation system, the communications network, the public health system, all the things that a modern industrial country requires to maintain its population, all of these things would be gone. And it is probable that in the ensuing months, the vast majority of the American and Russian population, those who were not killed outright in the first half hour of the attack, they too would die from starvation, from exposure, from epidemic disease, from radiation poisoning. As unimaginable as these direct consequences are, they are not the worst part of the story. Here too, it is the environmental consequences that we need to really look at.